Hi everyone, I'm Kadambari Sahu. I'm the head of design at Valulab. Design Inspire is a web series of passionate, innovative, and young inspiring designers. The web series dive into their passion, inspiration, and what makes them go. It's an effort to understand how they are navigating their career path and how they are investing their creative energies. We believe hearing their bold moves and inspiring stories will ignite interest and inspire the next generation of budding designers across the globe. So let's go forward with our guest today.
Our today's guest is Dharmesh Pa. Dharmesh leads the research and strategy initiatives at D91 Labs, a user research lab that documents the financial journeys of people in India. Dharmesh has also been an active contributor of design and public infrastructure projects through iSpirit and also volunteers to organize Design Up Conference and IXDA Bangalore meetups. So, welcome, Dharmesh Pa. How are
Thank you.
you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm quite excited to share the presentation as a talk.
Oh wow, we're excited to move and see how you share your stories, thoughts, and journeys.
Thank you. Thanks, Kadambari. I'm just going to share my screen. Uh, hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dharmesh. Today, I'm just going to talk about what is special about designing financial products, especially for the larger part of the country. We call like the top 100 million users in India as India, and the last mile India is what we quote unquote call as Bharat. I'm going to talk about what does it mean to design financial products for Bharat and what are the kind of work that I currently do and what is it important. I'm also the last part of the talk is going to be about how do we take the work to the appropriate people so that we could create impact at scale. So this at the end of this presentation, I'm just going to leave you guys with a thought saying that what kind of impact can a simple exercise like a design research could do one to the ecosystem and through the ecosystem what it could do to the country, right? Let me start with the most simple thing, saying that most of us would have received a phone call asking you for a loan, credit card, etc. Right? Have you ever thought that is calling a random person and telling them would require asking them if you want to take a credit card or loan, is it the most effective way to actually sell a product? A loan or a credit card is like a product for a bank. Imagine Amazon people do not call you asking, saying that, hey, do you want to buy this product, right? That's not the most effective way to actually sell a product. But irrespective of that, we still keep getting phone calls to ask you if you want to take a loan or a credit card. Let's take a step back and understand why are we getting these phone calls. In fact, let me also ask another question: who is actually getting these phone calls? So this is the total population of India. Like, we are around roughly 135 crores people. Almost 77.7 crore people have bank accounts. Like, this is almost around 80% of the Indian adults have bank accounts. And even half of it was opened only in the last few years after 2014, when the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana came into picture, where every bank was forced to open a bank account using Aadhaar. And out of that, these are the number of people who actually file income taxes, right? So which is roughly less than 5% of the people in India is whom we file income taxes. And these are the people who actually get phone calls. It could be quite surprising because everybody whom we know would get these phone calls. But you also know that we meet only few people, we meet people like us in our life, and only we are the kind of people who get these phone calls. Now, why are we getting phone calls? The most interesting part about people who file income taxes is the aspect that most of them are salaried employees, right? So what does salaried employees mean? For a bank, a salaried employee means they have predictable income. If this month I'm getting 50,000, next month also I'm sure that you will be getting 50,000 and hence so on. So what does predictable salary mean? It means I'm able to assess you better as a credit worthy person, right? So which essentially means stable income is a pointer for a bank to say, if I give a loan to this individual, they will be able to repay me back because they have a steady income. I have a vision into what their future is going to look like, correct? That's why if you look at most of the financial products that we use in the country, always have a sense of periodicity associated with them. If you take loans, it's called EMI. If you take mutual funds, it's called SIP, which is systematic investment planning. Every month they ask you to invest something. If you look at insurance, you see insurance premium being paid yearly or quarterly, right? This all looks good, but what is the problem? If you look at it, the rest of the 95% of the country do not have stable income. They are either small business owners, they are farmers, they are probably who are laborers, daily wage workers, or they are people who do a part of gig economy. Let's take even gig economy, like, they do not have stable income, or they have an income which might not be, or they have a job which might not be as stable, like they could be doing a contract worker, right? Now, what happens with this is essentially, since financial institutions do not have visibility into their particular income levels in future, the products are mostly not targeted for them, which leaves with all the banks trying to find customers only within the smallest pool of income tax filers who have salaried income, right? Now, what is the resultant of it? The resultant of this is this, because your cost of acquiring a customer becomes extremely high, right? That is why they use this innovative method of actually randomly calling people and asking if you want a loan, right? When you establish such a method to actually acquire customer, your cost of acquisition actually goes high. Now imagine if if I spend almost 1,000 rupees to acquire a customer, the minimum loan size that I could probably give will be only 1 lakh. If I have to keep my total cost of acquisition is less than 1%, right? So which means I have to spend 1,000 rupees to acquire a customer. So the minimum loan that I could give them is 1 lakh. The problem is most of India probably wants a loan which is very small ticket size, 5,000 rupee loan, which I wanted for 3 months, or a 500 rupee loan, which I wanted for a week, right? Since this way on how the loan products are structured, most of the people are even eliminated. They don't even like qualify for that particular loan product. That's the flawed product design aspect of it. The second problem is a broken distribution network. How do we form trust with the financial institutions generally? We look at the ATMs, we look at the branches, we say that, my branch manager works there, is someone I know. There is always the sense of referral. There is always a sense of physical establishment which gains trust, right? So these are all expensive methods to generate trust, right? So the banks are not willing to probably invest, like have as much as facilities as a tier 1 city in a tier 3 city, because they know even if I establish a bank branch, I will not be able to get as much as deposit I would get it in Mumbai, Hyderabad, or Bangalore, right? So they don't even invest that infrastructure anymore there. So these are the two challenges for India. Like I can take one step forward and say that, one of the reasons where the financial inclusion does not happen is because of these two reasons, right? But that's not all a bad picture, but we also have something good that has been happening in the last few years. One, as in the recent past, almost 91% of the people have gotten a unique identifier, which is Aadhaar. And there's also happening a accelerated pace of mobile and internet penetration in India, thanks to Jio, right? So these are the two leading parameters, and we have a lagging parameter, essentially. The credit penetration in India is low, the insurance penetration in India is low, the mutual fund penetration in India is low, right? So essentially, finance needs to have a catch up with technology is the whole point. How do we do it? Well, that's where fintech kind of comes into help, where you say that, hey, you know what, with fintech, with technology, I will be able to reduce this distribution cost. So if I reduce the distribution cost to, let's say, from 1,000 rupees to 10 rupees, then I could easily give you a 1,000 rupee loan. That's the whole hypothesis, right? Now, with that, the problem statement that my research lab is currently dealing with is, how might we design customized financial products? When you say customized financial product is, if a person does not have money to pay this month's EMI, he should be able to defer the payment for a couple of months. He should not be penalized for it. Without penalizing, how do I bring him inclusive into the system? Because I know for a fact he does not have a regular income. Second, can I give him a short-term loan as opposed to forcing him to take a long-term loan and a large ticket size loan, which actually is the requirement for him? The second thing is actually the better distribution network. The better distribution network, what I'm talking about is, if I have to generate trust to purely digital means, the way in which I'm going to design that financial application needs to be little different than how I'm going to design for, let's say, e-commerce, right? I'll give you a simple example. This is my most favorite example. In e-commerce, you are optimizing for the number of clicks, correct? So if you're saying that, from purchase to checkout, if it takes 10 clicks, you're continuously optimizing, saying, how can I do it in 5 clicks? How can I do it in 3 clicks? How can I do it in 2 clicks? But that doesn't work in financial services. In case if you're trying to help someone get a loan in 2 clicks as opposed to 10 clicks, then you're indirectly somehow creating a dark pattern. You have to hide information which you might not be explicitly telling them. You might be helping them enroll into a product for which they might not know the consequences of, right? So that is the kind of trust network where you'll have to see the completely user experience in a completely different manner when it essentially, especially comes to financial services. How do we design that better? We still are not there yet. And these are the two challenges which D91 Labs deals with. So when we started this lab, we said that, hey, you know what, these are the problems that exist. Either we could actually build it on our own, or we could take this research and actually impact other creators in the ecosystem. So we identify these pockets of influencers, which could be people like PhonePe, Google Pay, Razorpay, or it could be Kata Book or OK Credit, who have been doing really well in a certain financial product. We involve them, we share our research to them, and we tell them, you know what, this research can probably help you design your financial products in a little different way. What is the advantage for us? One, this lab is situated within this fintech company called Setu. What Setu does is Setu is essentially an API platform which builds APIs that connects banks and fintechs and startups, right? So they act like the technology wing, and D91 acts as a design wing, where at one place you should be able to get the APIs, and with D91 Labs you should be able to get the good design principles of how to build better financial products, better fintech products for India. This is our objective. How do I accelerate financial inclusion? By empowering fintech ecosystem with best design practices. Now here, if I have to deconstruct best design practices, I could call it one set as the design principles of what does good design principles for building a loan, mutual fund, insurance is like. And the second thing is actually building ready to use assets. Think of it like material design, but for fintech in India. That's the larger goal or the objective that we have for D91 Labs. Now, to do that, we said what is the lens in which we are going to look at, right? So this is traditionally the banking journey of any individual. You essentially go and start a bank account, then you start using the payment instrument. The payment instruments, it could be UPI, debit card, credit card, or net banking, etc. Then you start moving towards investments, which would be your savings, mutual fund, gold, etc. Then you move them to credit, right? It could be your consumer durable loans, which is the EMI loans that you see in Amazon, or personal loan, home loan, vehicle loan to that. And finally, you kind of try and take insurance where you secure the future for anything that is unpredictable that could happen. Like this could be your health insurance, vehicle insurance, life term, etc. Now we see a person is completely financially aware and also into the complete ecosystem of finance. When they have access to all these products, it is not just about access, but also have choices, right? So two lens: one, do people have access, and do people have choices, right? So if a person has access and if we have choices, then congratulations, you are in the elite person. You are in the top elite people of India, right? Which most people don't have. They might not have access. Even if they have access, they might have comes with some sort of consequences. Like say, for example, unsecured lending. You could go to a money lender, borrow the money, but you might have to end up paying like exorbitant interest rate. Like people would, so that's called a payday loan. A payday loan is nothing but a money lender goes to a market mandi, figures out a cart vendor, gives 100 rupees in the morning. When he comes back in the evening, he collects 105. So the 5 rupees might sound like a very simple thing, but it's almost 5% interest rate. And imagine the 5% interest rate over a year, your head is going to blast, right? To put that in perspective, if you or me go walk into a HDFC bank, ask for a personal loan, we both will be eligible for a personal loan at 11% or 13% interest rate, depending upon how good a credit score is, right? But all those people end up minimum paying at least anywhere between 30% or 40% interest rate, which is not sustainable, right? Second, so what we did was, okay, now I want to understand the financial journeys of people, but the cash flow of how people earn and how people spend is different for the different sectors. We've still not yet cracked the universal code of how do I divide India, But for now, we have divided them into 4 different sections just based on their cash flow and their money management. The first series, what we do is called Kirana Chronicles, which is essentially looking at financial journeys of MSMEs. So MSMEs could be retailers, B2B businesses, manufacturers, traders, etc. Now, their journey is completely different from millennial banking. Millennial banking are essentially people like us, where who are relatively younger. I would say like less than 35 years old, who have high disposable income. Which essentially, when I say high disposable income, means out of their entire salary, they would be comfortably be able to lead their life with minimum basics by spending just 20 or 25% of the salary. Like that's what I mean by high disposable salary. And the third series that we do is rural journeys. So with rural journeys, we try and cover a lot of tier 3 cities. In the tier 3 cities, we try and see a lot of self-help groups. How does social aspects come into terms of credits and savings, and what are the government initiatives that happen there? And we try and understand what does banking correspondent mean. A banking correspondent is nothing but an individual who does the banking operations on behalf of you, because there is a lack of physical bank branches there. So there is a representative who does banking operations in behalf of you. But banking operations here could include transferring of money, withdrawing of money, paying electricity bills, etc. Imagine like a Google Pay being done by another person, right? And the last one is blue collar workers. With blue collar workers, we try and cover people who are gig economy workers, and also people who are contract workers, or people who work, who are, I would say, laborers who are not knowledge workers. So we cover them there. So what do we cover there is essentially we do in-depth qualitative research. The qualitative research covers the main financial journey, which is divided into spend. Spend talks about income and expense. Save talks about what do they do with the excessive money. Borrow, which is essentially during the emergency, where do they borrow, how do they borrow, at what interest rate do they borrow. And fourth is plan, for unplanned emergencies. How do they tackle? Do they have insurance? Do they have retirement plans, etc. Right? Now, out of all of this, beyond this, we also try and understand what are their goals and aspirations. We have figured out that finance is always associated with their goals and aspirations in life. We try and understand that. In most of these aspects, we are not very much interested in understanding what is their exact income, or how much they invest every month, but we are more interested in what are the nudges, what are the motivations for someone to do something. Why did you choose HDFC and not ICICI? Or why did you choose this loan versus if you have to take a home loan, how did you go about it, right? How did you choose the period in which you're going to repay? You could be doing it for 15 years, you could be doing it for 20 years, you could be doing it for 25 years. I would love to understand how do they make the choice, right? What does 15 years mean to them, 20 years mean to them, 25 years mean to them? If you're doing savings, I would love to understand, does your savings have a goal associated with it, right? Are you saving for your kids' marriage? Are you saving for for your children's education, right? If you have to have a goal associated with it, how are you choosing how much to save? What does retirement money mean to them? So all of these questions is what we cover, and we convert them into long format stories, right? Um, in the long format stories, I can quickly show you one of it. Yeah. So in the long format stories, what we do is we completely fictionalize the story, which essentially means we mask any identifiable information, and we put them in the form of a story where we have this beautiful visualizations of the snapshots, bank accounts, which is essentially, and you have the researcher's perspective of what they think about it, and we have anecdotes from the story, which covers all the 4 sections that I spoke about. I'm going to share this links to you guys. Maybe you guys can have a look at it. Then going back, and we figured out that long format stories are just one way of how we look at these research. Then we also experimented with other formats. We also send newsletters once in a month, which essentially somebody could subscribe and directly lands into their inbox. We were recently covered by Forbes as one of the newsletters that must be read in the fintech domain. Then we also started saying that, okay, we are a social media generation, we might not have high attention span. And we said that, within 10 slides, can I tell the story of an individual, which is like a snapshot. We don't expect people to get everything from it, but we said that, if somebody reads it, they should be intrigued enough, go and read the full story. So this is something that we publish. We take the same story, scale it down to say that, in 10 slides, can I tell a story? That's one format in which we do the research. Then we take the research also to the industry, and the policymakers by doing roundtables. So these are very close group, invite only roundtables that are done. So in this roundtable, we are talking about MSME lending. You have folks from Katabook, OK Credit, and Razorpay talking to us, and we have Saranya, who's also a policy expert. We try and say that, hey, this is the research, these are the insights. Are we all aligned to our mission, right? Quickly going, the next one, we try and do design jams. So design jams in the pre-COVID world, we used to have physical design jams where we used to do design hackathons. This is a design hackathon that happened last year. It's almost a year. Last year, September, October is when we did this jam. So these are the people who participated from there, and we take the research, convert them into personas, and we give them, say that, hey, here is a persona, here is a problem statement in fintech, can you solve for it? Right? And we bring in people from the different design, different organization. We put them into teams, and we see if there is a magic that can happen, that people can think a little differently than how they've been traditionally been thinking. So we document all of the prototypes that come out of the design jam, and we also put it out in the public for people to consume. So these are the kind of people we've been very lucky enough to collaborate with. So which is essentially with these folks, we have done some other projects in the past, or we are in the talks of doing a project currently. And these are some of the few of the collaborations, I would say. Like, these are the people whom we call our well-wishers. We really love our research, and they are always in touch with us. We kind of also get the sense of what does industry look like, and what does industry want from understanding the users is something that we constantly have an engagement. And we would say, we call them the friends of D91, right? So there are more and more people who are joining this club. Yeah, so that's like the short introduction of what we do. You guys can reach out to us through email. You can follow us on Twitter. We recently started the Instagram thing, so you can follow us on Instagram too. So that's the presentation about.
Thank you, Dharmesh. That was really very educational. And now we'll move on to the second part, where we are interested in learning about your design journey, what inspires you, and how you're keeping up with things around. So let me start with like the first question that I ask most of the guests. That when and how did you think of becoming a designer, and how did it start for you?
I would say I'm a very accidental designer, because I've known tools like Photoshop and everything. I come from a very small town, it's Erode in Tamil Nadu. So I come from a very small town. I learned Photoshop, but it was just to play around, edit your pictures, edit your friends' pictures, Taj Mahal behind and stuff like that. So all I knew at that point in time is, yeah, I know this tool, I can play around with it. Probably the maximum I could become is this photo editor in all the photo studios. Is honestly what I thought I could become. But you ended up in the undergrad college, and I was doing a lot of these posters. I was doing a lot of these events, which I think is the journey of every engineering student who knows Photoshop. That's where I accidentally discovered this friend who was a senior, which is Suresh. Right, Suresh was my senior, and he also someone whom I started looking up to, and because he also knew this tools and he was much more refined in his thoughts. We used to do all this we used to have this Gyan Adda. We used to sit and talk for hours. He also had no idea about NID, but another friend who kind of took him to accidentally to an NID exam, and he actually got through, and he said he's going to go to it. And we kept in touch, and he kept telling about what is new media design and what does NID look like. And he's the one who planted the seed of saying that, hey, you know what, you are good at something, you should pursue it. I've been pursuing it. So it was very, that's why I say it's accidental, right? If I never met him in that college, honestly, I hated my UG. Like, if there's one thing that happened that good out of him is meeting him. So I pretty much followed his path for quite some time. So yeah, I mean, I would say I'm lucky there. So yeah, then I knew about NID, then I applied, and I got through it.
So you started your journey with a new media design, right? And then how did you settle for field of research then?
So research, I was completely blown by the ethnography course that we had in our college. I thought this is a pretty interesting way to understand people. Like, it's just understanding strangers observing strangers has always been like, if you allow me in an airport, I could just sit and observe people, the chaos and all of it. I love chaos, and I just like observing people from a distance. And Anand, who was our professor, taught us to do it in a much more systematic way, right? With active engagement rather than passively observing someone, right? I always had this inquiry saying that, hey, this is such a powerful tool to understand people. Why isn't it being used in industry, right? So whenever I spoke to, and I was completely drawn to the world of startups. Even though I had a lot of opportunities of going into bigger companies, but I chose startups because I thought I could pick up the role I want. I could hustle around, yeah, and I don't have to be. So I did my graduation project with Adobe. I met some amazing people, but it's just that just confined to one product, one role, uh, like doing the very structured work is not something that I thought was very exciting. Like I wanted to try out multiple different stuff. So startups I thought was a good place to be there and hustle around. There I was able to relate with founders more than like the designers, at least at that point in time I was meeting, because with the founders I thought the insight that they get and the conviction that they get to actually start a company comes from doing such research,
Yeah.
right? It's either a problem that they already face themselves, or they would have observed a problem very closer, and they would have spoken to them, understand their worldview, and they would have done it better,
Mhm.
right? So I thought, okay, but what happens is somewhere when the company grows, that spirit dies down, right? Then it becomes about tracking numbers, going behind metrics, and all of it. I knew that there is a huge opportunity to mimic the founder's enthusiasm inside a company
Mhm.
by establishing a research team. Right? I always had it at the back of mind, but it took me 5 years to make someone agree to saying that to find that synergy with someone to say that oh, let's do it. So, but what changed was that I never gave up. Like I see a lot of my other friends who had given up, saying that this is not going to happen. Let me just keep doing like a product design, UI, UX, and stuff like that. But I always tried introducing some of the research methods in some form or the other in all the places that I worked with. In fact, in the current role that I'm doing
Mhm.
came out of an experiment that I did in a previous company, which I was casually talking to someone and said that you know what, I think I can do like another bigger experiment with you, and that's how this lab started, right? So that's how I moved to research, like now being a full-time research.
And then how did you choose fintech for it?
No, fintech is something like I think I started as a curiosity, but I think now it's a very strategic thing. Uh, I'm going to tell why it is strategic. I hope that people take that and more people come. Right. One is because I was very scared of finance. I was very scared of not being able to manage my own finances. I did again like a small experiment around, like I said, oh, you know what, I'm going to track my expenses, right? I there was like a entire period of 3 months where I would keep scanning every bill on Evernote, and I would keep having a note of it. I would keep like I would try find out what is the right amount of money that I'm spending per month, and it was
Mhm.
very challenging for me to do it, right? And I also figured out that a lot of my friends, nobody does it. Like a lot of the designers don't do it, at least at that point in time, right? Because numbers are something that scares us, right? And it's not. It may sound cliche, but we kind of try to stay away from this entire number game. I said, oh, this is something that fears me, and I want to get into it. Right? I want to overcome this fear. Is how I started breaking down in managing my own finances, is when there were other friends who helped me saying that you know what, there's a larger problem to it, right?
Right.
And that's how I slowly moved from, okay, managing, let's figure out my finance, to India's finance, was that journey, right? And today also I'm very openly saying, like many people would dismiss fintech because it's quite challenging to, like, so for example, I understand, let's say, if I'm somebody who's building like a hyper local application, right? It could be Ola, Uber, or could be any other like urban Clapper. You largely have similar mental models. Of course, there are challenges in depth to that also, but largely I could take a similar mental model and apply there. But fintech, what happens, like I was telling before, one, let's say if you're designing for an e-commerce, you traditionally know how you're purchasing in a supermarket or a grocery store. All you have to do is take that mental model and try and convert it into a digital format. So you know what a checkout means, you know what a browsing means, and all of it. Now, when it comes to fintech, this person might not have seen mutual funds in his real life, right? You might have to first educate them about mutual funds, and then help them adopt that mutual funds completely in a digital platform without a user, like an agent being into a picture. Now you will be able to do that only if you understand mutual funds yourself, right? You understand what does large cap funds mean. You understand what does expense ratio mean. What does fund houses mean, and all of it, right? So there's a huge learning curve to it. So I've been very selfish to say that, hey, you know what? If I surpass this learning curve, I'm going to create that. There is going to be a huge barrier for other people to come there, right? So I'm telling this openly because I want more people to come. It's going to be challenging. So then I figured out that, okay, I'm going to figure out this niche for myself, where I say that, I want to set a niche where a lot of people believe that, design is very horizontal. Like I can take this expertise and I can put it into any vertical that I want. Like today I could work for healthcare, I could work for food tech, fintech, etc. Right? But I kind of believe in knowledge compounding, right? So I keep compounding my knowledge in a certain field so that I reach to a point where I should be the only person whom you should reach out to at some point in time, right? Because I want to build that niche, and this is just a journey into building that niche.
So we did discuss a lot of challenges that are there in for the fintech in India. But what would be the two top challenges for fintech if you're building any fintech product in India?
One is financial awareness, definitely, right? So we all this is funny, right? You go through an education because you want to earn money, but nobody tells you how to manage your money. Starting like why can't kids learn about compound interest, right? You talk about it in a small aspect in mathematics, but with real life examples, we don't still learn about compound interest. We don't learn about how to save, what does insurance mean. We don't learn about it, right? So the financial awareness is extremely important, right? And the second is the ability to use technology to its fullest, right? So today everybody talks about saying that we have 450 million smartphone users, internet users in India, but the problem is most of them are either consuming content or very passively active, or they're not completely active on internet. So what I mean is, even when people say that they're using WhatsApp, so I try and ask them, are you somebody who's reading WhatsApp, or are you somebody who's forwarding WhatsApp, or are you someone who's actually actively creating messages on WhatsApp? So that's the three levels how we look at it. Even in the larger scale, so we have a scale in which we look at it. There are people who might just consume information. They might use social media apps, they may use messaging apps, then they may go to a little more active way of using internet is actually purchasing something online. In fact, payment apps and banking apps come to the last level. Like they are the most complicated one to actually use, because if I post something in social media, like in most of the cases, like there's not nothing much to lose. Like if I am somebody not known much to people, I'm not talking about celebrities, but if I'm like a common man, I don't have much to lose. Like I can directly the next day go and take down the post or something. But if I make a mistake in when I'm transferring money to someone, I lost my hard-earned money. I have real life impact to it. Yeah. So that ability to build applications which gains trust of the user and yet gives the security feeling for them is the second challenge.
So because of this new reality, which is COVID-19, many sectors have been impacted. Is there any impact on fintech? And if so, how you have evolved, or what are your strategies to evolve out of it?
Yeah, of course, every sector will have its impact. Like in fact, fintech, it's both like I would say it's a boon and it's also like a curse. The boon for the fact that you see now people adopting a lot more digital payments. Yeah, if uh, demonetization was the first nudge, and I see COVID as the second huge nudge for people to adopt digital payment. Right, adopting digital payments is actually a good sign, because that's the first step towards your digital journey. Then you slowly start adopting savings, bill payments, all of it, right? Now that's one huge thing. The second thing, it's a not a great thing, because what is happening right now is banks are very scared to lend. Okay, so the RBI has actually reduced their repo rate, which is the rate at which they are lending to the banks. But the banks are not very comfortable to lend to that's how it will trickle down, right? The banks, only if they start giving out to the small businesses will improve their business, only people will come and buy. Now, since there is no visibility into the future, right? So the trickling down of the loans does not happen. People have money, but they're not willing to lend, right? And that's a big problem. Only if that happens, like, and everybody is really genuinely hoping that this Diwali becomes like the change in the period where people kind of consume more and people borrow more and produce more, and Diwali seems to be like one of the hope which will change the the current scenario for the lending sector especially.
Yeah, Diwali should do that, I guess. And so there are a lot of things which happens with digital payments, or just in digital in general, which is sometimes there are cyber attacks, data breach, and now with everything which is going around. So there's a lot of problems. One with security, and second also with trust, right? So how do you tackle such issues?
No, so let's break it down, right? So one is where your data being leaked, right? So we've been currently doing like this one project around data sharing, and we've been talking to more people. So this is the layers in which people understand by privacy and data sharing, right? So the always the first instance comes to around how did someone get a phone number and getting so that I'm getting a call,
Yeah.
right? They have theories around it. Either my bank leaked it, I leaked the information, or there is databases which is being sold. So that's the first, what do you say, mistrust happens there.
Yeah.
The second mistrust happens where where the scams happen, right? The scams is where either it could be first hand or second hand, right? Where people are talking about, oh, I was being duped, or my friend is being duped, right? And the third level is where the current mainstream conversation that happens around privacy of the Chinese apps, and even when Arogya Setu came into picture, there was a lot of privacy concerns and stuff. That they people are talking about, it's no more a technology problem; it becomes a geopolitical problem, right? And now imagine we have come to a situation why I'm using an app or not using an app, not because of the features, but because of the ideologies,
Yeah.
right? So these are the like layers in which I look at it. Now, especially coming to the scam layer, it has to be both ways, right? Now, one, that is why I talked about financial awareness being extremely important. And second is where even though we should not be optimizing for clicks, correct?
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, now recently Google Pay has implemented this aspect saying that, every time before you pay, there is a pop-up which comes which says that, you are paying this individual, right? Are you okay with it? This comes especially when there is a UPI request that happens, right? Now, in the UPI request in the earlier days, like, the UPI payment to the UPI request screen, if you just looked at it, there was minimal difference, right? In almost all the apps. Now, people have consciously now put an effort to design them in a different way, right? Now, slowly over a period of time, the financial awareness and all of this is where we can only handle the problem that way, right? I don't have a one answer. But on
Yeah.
the other hand, what I know, the downside of it is something that I know. Let's say you go to a shop, you buy a product and you don't like the product, you're just gonna accuse that guy, or you're gonna accuse the brand, right? But if you come to digital payments, and the first time you're trying to, if you're encountering a scam, you might not come to digital payments ever again, right? So which means you're using a customer for digital payments for a lifetime. It becomes very difficult to get their confidence back. So that is something we'll have to keep in our mind when we're taking product decisions.
That's really something. Also, you've also seen a lot of different mediums that you are using for disseminating all of this awareness. And I also see this WhatsApp group, which is Tales of Bharat. What is that?
So the Tales of Bharat started. So we have been doing a lot of analysis of these interview snippets.
Yeah.
So earlier we were also publishing the transcripts of the interviews along with the stories. But there was a lot of concerns around it. One was, we were not sure, like, if it's an ethical, quote unquote, ethical way to do it. We didn't know if there's an ethical way to do it. And the second thing was that, of course, the transcripts were too long, and we didn't know the impact of how many people are reading it. Right? Again, this was a new experiment which we started only like it's been doing it for like almost a month, where we're saying that, can I contextualize it, saying that, hey, you know what? Can you read only about the banking behavior? Can you read only about the payments behavior? Right? This is the person. It's almost like, morning I wake up, I want like a small dose of research, right? I want to understand someone, right? It's serendipitous. It's not something that you seek for, but it's a nice to know serendipitous sort of discovery that happens. I'm hoping that hoping in future, like if I'm able to collect it, do sustainably for almost a year, maybe I put up a big database outside where you could traverse through it and find insights that you want. Yeah, but this is right now, it's just an experiment. A lot of my friends have been doing WhatsApp newsletters. I got very inspired from them. So I thought, this could be like a WhatsApp newsletter sort of a thing that people read doses of research.
So how can one get it?
Right now we just started with one group, and it's almost full. Now I'm just waiting to see one. I should be having confidence, like daily I'm like uh, regularly posting. Like, I don't want to start multiple groups and like keep people hanging. So I should get the confidence, like let me start with one group. But yeah, in future we definitely would like to open up more groups, and we will send out the invites.
So what is your future vision for fintech, especially in India?
The future vision for fintech, like I said, that one, everybody should have access to all the kinds of financial products. Second, they should have choices in all the kinds of financial products. And it's very heartwarming because some of the interviews where they talk about their dreams. Let's say they could be starting a kirana store. They could be wanting to buy a laptop. They could be wanting to buy a cattle and all of it. Trust me, all of the money that they need in their life to jump to the next level could be could be the excessive expense that we do on a monthly basis, right? It could be less than 50,000, 20,000, and stuff like that. And the stories they talk about, saying how not knowing a language, not having a document, and not having a credit score, not having an asset keeps them away from financial access, right? There should be some way for all of these people to get access to their finances, so that they are not trying to get the money to buy a bigger refrigerator or a car, but they're trying to get something so that they could have a better life, right? So if we are able to do that, and if D91 can play a small role in impacting organizations who do that, yeah, then we are at a good place, and that would be a happy place to be, and that's my future vision for, yeah.
You talked about financial inclusion in that sense, but in broad sense, what do you mean by financial inclusion?
No, financial inclusion by this, like how I talked about, saying that if I have a requirement
Yeah.
for a 40,000 rupee loan to buy a computer so that I could set up a computer center, but I do not have hard assets, which is I don't have a land, I have a gold and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The banking institution should be able to assess me through alternate data, right? So with alternate data could be my phone usage, my mobile bill payment, or it could be my bank account, through which I could figure out, like, is he paying electricity bill at the right time? Is he having maintenance simple? So these alternate data points should help him get a loan without risking his life, right? Today I will be able to get a loan, HDFC ready-madely tells me whenever you open, saying, hey sir, there is 2 lakhs whenever you can take, with because I don't need it, right? I keep getting salary, but HDFC keeps sending me that. But that's the kind of product he needs.
Yeah.
Without asking much questions, he wants it, because only when he has that, he'll be able to prove that,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I mean by financial inclusion. The access and the choices and I have should be there for everybody.
I was reading some articles on finance and things like that, and there was like unequivocal thought about that, how in fact women are left behind in all of these things.
Yeah.
So when you did research, what was your some of the findings that you thought about gender, let's say inequality, or just women leaving behind?
To be honest, I've been very, very moved by the stories that I've actually gone and seen in tier 3 cities, right? So these women are very aspirational, very empathetic. Nobody complains about the current situation. The entire family might be living in 10,000 rupee income, or like 15,000 rupee income, because most of these they come from a patriarchal society, right? There's only one family member earning. There are multiple chances where either the man of the family is not quote unquote fit to actually take them to the next level, or they face some sort of a health crisis, or the person could have passed away. They still have the aspirations to move forward, and that is why when the self-help groups are formed in the rural part, they actually make sure that only women come. Like, there is no self-help group concept in men, and that's called chit funds. That happens in a private, in an unorganized manner. But anything that happens through the government happens only with women. And why that happens is they have this. They bank on the social connect, right? So essentially, if there's a group borrowing that happens, the group borrows like 1 lakh rupee. Let's say everybody gets 10,000. Even if one person fails to actually repay money per month, or they have a 5 time period, the entire group does not get a loan after that. right? So the hypothesis, it comes from Muhammad Yunus, who started the Grameen Bank. The hypothesis comes from the fact that women are much more responsible because they're thinking for the kids, they're thinking for the family, they're thinking far into the future, right? So in that way, I have like really high hopes for most of these women to take this money and get into their entrepreneurial journeys into doing. But when it comes to, like, say for example, some of the interviews that we have done where women are very well, like they have relatively higher amount of disposable income. We haven't done like a proper series by itself, right? But today, if there is a couple, right? There is a married couple, they have clear mental models of who's going to handle what, right? Now, there is no point in actually pinpointing saying that a man does it, woman does it. I'm not getting into that conversation, but inside within a relationship, there are people who say that, I will handle finance and I will handle the other aspects of it, right? And some of the interviews where we talk about saying that they say that, I know minimum about finance, but my husband handles everything. Yeah, that's the dynamics between that family. And that is how it is. It remains in a lot of the some of the interviews that we have done, and that's what the so another pointer to something that we tried organizing a personal finance 101 for women for all the kind of events. We used to get like 150, 200 registrations, and I realized most of them only men are coming. Like we made sure that only women will come.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and we did not get enough registrations, and I had to like call some of my friends and saying, hey, come, and everybody had their own reasons of why they were not interested, right? This is again goes back to financial awareness, right? So like it is also should be made important saying what does financial freedom mean to an individual. You shouldn't be dependent on other people. So like as much as we raise voices around equal pay, equal wages, I strongly believe there needs to be an equal amount of voice that is raised for saying that financial awareness, what does that kind of freedom mean for women, right?
Yeah.
This is my personal opinion. We are not still there yet, and hopefully we see moving towards that path.
So I was reading about demonetization times and how impacts were and things like that from the perspective of women again. And many of them had these habits of not really putting it in banks. So that
Yeah.
was like some of the things that I thought about and thought that because you've done so much of research, you would be able to talk about something in that.
Yeah, that they did. Like I mean, I haven't read the stories, but a lot of people have told me one of the huge people who were impacted by this housewives who were saving the smaller amounts of money
Yeah.
without actually being in the purview of the family, right? That is very common, and it is also common. Why? Because of the fact, not because the husband is going to drink, or it's just that if you come from a relatively lower socioeconomic background, having little extra money also means that you tend to spend on something which is quote unquote luxury. It could be you could going to a cinema, or you could buying sweets or getting chocolates for the kids and stuff like that. It's actually the women in the family can say that you know what, I don't need this expense. This expense can actually help in the future for something else, right? Which probably there will be discrepancy between the man and the woman, or like other people in the family. So that's why they tend to save.
Yeah, that was about all the financial inclusion questions and things, thoughts that I wanted to ask you about. I want to ask you now a very general question in terms of how we perceive design. So there are a lot of definitions of what good design is, and each one has their own. What is your thoughts on good design?
For me, good design is something which help somebody do a certain action, goal, intent, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So it's essentially, for me, it looks like tools that are built with an intent, right? Now, like this laptop was built with the intent of helping communicate, and now it's helping me communicate. This, I think, is a good design, right? And I also believe that good design, I strongly believe in the aspect of good design being invisible, right? It should become a part of my life. It should become a part of my identity, right? So I tend to appreciate a lot design from a very utilitarian perspective. Different people have different aspects of it. Like even in some of the design graduates, you see, people tend to move more towards art, but I am somebody who moves more towards utility, right? So that is why I really love this monoblock chair, which is the plastic chair that we see every day, and that's one of the very famous design examples because it's one chair which you see it's found throughout the world. You could see it in the cafe in Paris to a marriage hall in a small town in India, because that chair does not have a context. By just photographing the chair, you would not know where it was photographed. So I really love design that kind of blends with our life, and which just sits there, does the job what it's supposed to do without kind of screaming for the attention.
Now I move towards the design inspirations, or what does inspires you as a designer. So you can go if you have a clear thoughts about what inspires you. You can go ahead and answer that, or I'll ask you specific ones.
No, no. So I have an alternate interest, which kind of is where I look for parallels of for inspiration, which is essentially movies. Right? I get inspired a lot from the. When I say movies, it's not about consuming movies; it's about also how movies are being made. Right. So I read a lot about how to write screenplays, how about directors work. And so if I'm watching, even like starting from Christopher Nolan to a Tamil movie, I tend to watch the making of it. How did they conceive a particular scene, and how did this happen? So if you talk to me, like if you ever have like a design discussion with me, you see me drawing a lot of references from the movies world, right? So I think movies have been a heavy inspiration of inspiring me, because that's also a form of storytelling. I love how translating some of those emotions into design, right? For me, movies has been the place where I look for inspiration.
And any inspirational people, maybe from design, not from design, but who have inspired you, to do what you do, or just have been.
So I actually look up to a lot of people outside design, because design is actually a amalgamation of other lot of other fields, right? Then I started feeling that if I start looking for people outside design, is where I will start uh, getting new ideas into design. So one of the person I really love is Mohammed Yunus, who started the Grameen Bank, who started the NTM Microfinance Revolution. The book that I read, The Banker to the Poor, is somewhere inside my fintech journey. When I started reading the book, is where I said, "Oh, you know what? There's another whole new world of access to finance as opposed to designing for better financial services." Is that book really changed my life? That's one person that I look up to. But other than that, I try to look up a lot of economists, journalists these days. One of the other person that I've been really in love with is Amit Verma, who's been doing the Seen and the Unseen podcast. Right? Yeah, so some of these people are the ones that I kind of look up. I can't, like, the names don't strike me right now, but these are the kind of people that I kind of look up to.
And the last question that I'll ask you for today is some of the advice for young and budding designers.
Also, that's going to be a little difficult, because I generally like. So one of the things that I started understanding is, the more honest I am for myself,
Yeah,
is what makes me a unique designer, as opposed to trying to fit in.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It took me a lot of time. I think I'm in the journey where trying to be comfortable about your thoughts, comfortable about your feelings, comfortable about your body, appearance, shape, everything, right? I want to be who I am, right? And the more I tend to be who I am, I start attracting like-minded people, and that's all it matters for me. Right? I'm not here to design something which the entire world is supposed to use. I am okay to design for a community, even if 10 people it changes their life, if it impacts them a lot. I measure impact by that, not by the scale of it, but the depth of it. Yeah, right.
Your
So be
advice,
yourself.
be
That's
yourself.
what, try to find out who you are, like, rather than seeking out. Like, that's what, even in research, like, I'm sure we've all gone through the process of saying that, trying to look inside is extremely important, is what I think, especially for a designer, researcher, whoever it is. Being aware of our biases, where are we coming from, where does our thoughts come from, articulating that is more important. That it it's a process, it's a journey, it takes time, right? And yeah, putting an effort to doing that itself is a good place to start.
It takes time. Yes, it does. And I think most of our, people who have come on the show has been telling that, good things take time, and don't get, afraid if you're somewhere stuck. So I think that's the recurring theme that I've seen, many of our guests have been saying. Um, But today's episode was really very educational. It was on a very different note on fintech. As you talk about, the awareness seems to be not very high. So it was really nice, listening to you talking about the fintech industry and your thoughts and your, stories. It really inspired us. And Dharmesh, for us today, you were the young, inspiring designer that we were looking up to, and we will look up to for your work, and we'll follow it. For years to come, and see, what you create unique in this world. Um,
Thank
for
you.
all the things that you said and inspired us today, we would like to just shower a small token of appreciation from our side, and that's a seal that we give of inspiring young designer and title of that. So thank
Thank
you,
you.
Dinesh, for
Thanks,
coming.
Karamburin. Bye. Have a good day.
Take care. Bye.